Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm Farrukh Pitafi, who's the regular host of this show. Sana Makbool is traveling right now, so I was tasked with hosting on her behalf. So I've been doing it. This is the last program of the week. From next week, she'll come back and I'll resume my job as the analyst on this show. So today we are going to talk about primarily economic matters. We are going to talk about the state of affairs right now. It seems that economy is picking up. We have seen that dollar has finally started going down and the rupee has staged some recovery. Apart from that, we keep on hearing that the current account deficit has reached the break-even point. We are going to ask question about that as well as we move in the program, what exactly to expect. And then the second topic is about how Indian audiences have been misbehaving with Pakistani sportsmen in our matches in India. And that is not all. We have seen a video where a policeman is asking somebody to not chant Pakistan Zindabad. We are going to talk about all these matters and more in today's program. In order to help us understand these issues in the studio, I am joined by Raja Faisal. Thank you very much, Raja sir, for being part of the program. Then online, we are joined by Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, who is an economist. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And also Abbas Shah, who is again an economist. Thank you very much, Abbas Shah, for being part of the program. Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, I have to start with you. Your understanding of where we are at regarding our economy, particularly our road to recovery, sir.
So, Pitafi sahab, let's think about two things that are ongoing in the economy right now in the short term. One, we keep forgetting that we are in an IMF program, so adjustments within the program are happening in the economy. Number two, the administrative measures on hoarding, smuggling, eliminating a market that had been created for dollar exchange, looking at the Afghan transit trade agreement, trying to stop smuggling of the Iranian goods in Pakistan. So, all these things are happening along with the pricing adjustments and other adjustments part of the IMF program. I think all these adjustments have kind of, in the short run, created a sense of stability, a sense which has then translated into markets behaving better or more positively, you can say. Then there is also a sense that cotton crop and rice crop are looking good. The cotton arrivals are 70%, I think, more than last year and are looking to hit about 12 million bales. Similarly, the rice crop is looking good. The rice export is looking good. Also, the wheat crop is looking decent. Along with this, 5% increase in remittance last month is a good sign, though it's much below what we would expect the remittances to be in Pakistan. But let's hope that the actions on the administrative side carry on, and the difference between the open market and the interbank has been brought to almost negligible. So the remittances would come back. Exports have seen a very, very minor uptick. The energy production is better. The current account, as you said, has shrunk in the first quarter and almost has broken even in the September month. All this, if you couple with the fact that there is some sense that this is likely to continue, the stock market hit a 50,000 high, um, which is, I think, after 6 years that this kind of high has been hit. One more thing that the market has seen is that the profitability of the companies, despite very, very low economic growth, has been quite decent, especially the petroleum sector. The banks, of course, the banks are making money because we are consuming 70 to 80% of the monies with the government, and the markup rate or the policy rate still is on the higher side. Inflation till yesterday um, um, was still on the uncomfortable side. But yesterday I saw a statistic which gives me a little bit of hope on inflation, which is that the week on week inflation of the 50 one very essential items represented by the SPI. SPI is our sensitive price index, taken in 50 markets and 17 cities of the country, showed a negative 1.7% growth in the last week compared to the week prior to that. So this is October 19th week ending. So let us hope that if there is nothing that happens in the international market and the petroleum prices, the trend of a 48 rupee coming down of petrol in 2 weeks, the diesel coming down about 26 rupees, despite that we increased the PDL for about 5 rupees and some dealer margins. So I think a downward trend has been observed there as well. Though still we are on the higher side on the inflationary trend. So all in all, in the short run, this is the picture that the economy is depicting. Um,
Right.
Needless to say that the risks are elevated on the external side. We still need to put a lot of money together. We still need to make sure that the IMF program, the review, hopefully in November, is on target. The external flows are there. And our challenges of the long term, as depicted by the PIA's very uncomfortable position, even in the
Right.
short run, of privatization, energy sector reform, are
Absolutely,
there
Dr.
to
Saab.
be dealt with.
Absolutely, Dr. Saab, and we are going to talk further about all these matters as well. When you were talking about stats actually bearing the impression that in coming days inflation is going to go down, that must be so. They must be hopeful. But when you talk to the common man on street, the impression is that inflation is still killing the little man. We are going to talk more about that, but Awais Saab, your opening statement on the state of economy, where we are at and where we are headed.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I think I would definitely agree with much of what Mr. Khaqan has mentioned. Definitely, I think the economy is headed in a very positive trajectory as what we see now. I think this sense of positivity, started brewing when the IMF deal was, matured, and we started hearing the news that there was a deal going on and the deal may succeed. And when the deal finally succeeded, I think that is where it created a sense of stability for our forex reserves, for our state bank reserves. So where there was stability there, then obviously when we entered that program, we had to abide by many conditions, as the colleague here mentioned. So obviously, in accordance with those conditions, we had to take a few difficult decisions as well. But following that, obviously, the positivity, we had to see it. The primary contributor towards that positivity, in addition to maturing the deal with IMF, is the action that the authorities have taken in regards to controlling the smuggling and illegal hoarding of the dollar. The dollar goes down, and obviously, since we are an import-based economy, when the dollar goes down, that has a very, very deep impact on the rates of inflation, and obviously, primarily, the rate of petroleum. Obviously, petroleum is a very important
Yeah, we saw
product
that
that
finally there was a breather when we saw that fuel
absolutely,
prices came
absolutely.
down.
However,
But even then, when you
however,
talk about sensitive price index, the costs are still very high, are they not?
no, obviously, but I think this trickle down will obviously take some time, and eventually, I mean, in my opinion, I think we are headed in the right direction. But obviously, what I was going to say earlier as well, although all of this seems very good in the short run, and I think it is. The authorities have done their job. It's a job well done. But ultimately, for medium and long run, I think we definitely need to take some very serious decisions, and we need to go for economic reforms. This term economic reforms has been, it's nowadays, it's been thrown around like a very cliche term, but ultimately I think we have no choice. We have to take some serious economic reforms, and even in those economic reforms, I think the two very important aspects that we have to see and we have to decide upon are obviously privatization. I mean, it is a subjective matter, but in my opinion, I think these
No, it is not a
white
subjective
elephants of
matter.
the state have to be
No,
privatized.
Avasa, it is not a subjective matter. We know that whatever is gobbling up public resources has to go. Kindly, very quickly make the second point that you were talking about, and then we are going to move ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the most important point that we have to focus on is export. What we actually sell to the world, because most of the economic problems that we face are because of a shortage of dollar in our reserves. So in order to stabilize that, I think increasing export sustainably should be the #1 priority.
Right. When you said there are 2 points in reform, I was hoping that you're going to talk about the expansion of tax base. But Avasa, this is my 100th or more program in which we have been talking about reforms. I've been writing about economic reform, the need of it, for past
Absolutely.
25 years. Sadly, we haven't seen that actually materializing.
That's exactly what I said. This term has
There will
become
come
very cliche,
some
and it is
time.
very
Hang on. Allow me to actually go to the third guest. But there will one day come time when we'll stop talking about reform and start doing it. But Raja Faisal Sahab, this is something very interesting that we have to actually look at. On one side, we understand that our authorities have actually acted against smugglers and hoarders, and therefore we have seen some breather regarding dollars per cost as well. But must we always actually rely on our armed forces to help us out? When it comes to price control mechanism, that is something that has to be done on the grassroots level. We keep on complaining about corruption, and everybody keeps on doing it. Why would that be?
Farrukh, you are very right about it. Of course, army should not be, looked towards for all of these things, because these are administrative things, and of course we have a mechanism, we have the bureaucracy that can actually act well, of course, within the provincial level and the national level as well.
Not local level?
Local level as well. Of course,
because local level is where prices are.
Exactly. And this is their job to do, but obviously in Pakistan, we have been seen that all of the jobs end up being done by the military itself. And in this context, in recent times, of course, Chief of the Army Staff, he's been taking full interest, because he was of the view that, of course, somebody has to control the economy, and economy was in a dire situation. And earlier, I was obviously listening to Awais Shah, and Awais has highlighted that, of course, Pakistan needs to, increase its exports. We always talk about import and export balance. And if we look at, in last fiscal year 24, let's call it, in this, of course, we have reduced our imports from $16 billion to $12 billion.
Yeah, but we have, in principle, we have made a commitment to IMF that we will not be controlling it artificially.
And Farrukh, if we look at the situation, I think to some extent we need to let it go. Why I say this? Because
let what go?
This import and export balance, we have to loosen a bit on the imports. Why I say this? Because we end up not getting the raw materials for our industries, and if we don't get the raw material which is supposed to come from the outside, and that too is part of the our import bills,
like in textile,
what
exactly in textile, by the way?
I'm not expert on textile industry.
No, but it needs cotton, and we have plenty of cotton here.
We have, but of course, in last 10 years, we have seen that the focus from cotton, it has shifted towards, of course, the sugar and sugarcane side.
Yeah.
So that is the main problem. And of course,
you cannot make clothes out of sugar.
you can't. That is why you are importing from outside. So that's what I'm trying to say, that the import bills, of course, they will increase eventually.
Do you think we cannot cultivate sugarcane on our soil?
We can, but of course we have to make the land available for it. But at the same time,
So we are going to
at the same time, Farrukh, let me just finish my thought, Farrukh. The problem here is that if that raw material does not end up in Pakistan, it is not being imported, then of course the industries, the important industries, there are so many families, thousands of families that are actually attached with them industries, and they will end up losing the jobs. So that too would be a burden on the economy.
I'm with you when you talk about oil, when you talk about this kind of issues. But there comes a time when you have to stop making excuses for lack of value addition in your product. You can do it without actually importing a lot as well. But perhaps we haven't been able to do it. Very quickly, let me go back to Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. Dr. Saab, in many programs, you actually spoke about expanding the tax base. And there were two things that you consistently argued for. One, including the real estate sector. Secondly, agriculture as well. Right now, it seems that we are doing nothing for either. Do you think that in coming days we'll have to do something about it? And regarding the offloading of state-owned enterprises that Avas also mentioned, do you see any modality in coming days for getting rid of assets like PIA, as you mentioned?
So on the tax side, it is very clear that without doing agriculture income tax, real estate tax, retail tax, and you cannot progress in terms of domestic resource mobilization. 23% of your economy is agriculture. A paltry amount of agriculture income taxes collected in the country. If you see about 40% your retail and wholesale, again, a paltry amount is collected there. And real estate has been kind of also kept exempt. So these three sectors have now become almost essential for us to move forward. There is no doubt about it. There is a big tax gap there, and our tax collection would be much higher if we were to do something on them. Whether it's the interim government which sets some boundaries of moving ahead on these, or whether it's the incoming government in the elections next year, I think this has now become a point which we have been able to, through programs like yours and others and webinars and policy interactions, come to the conclusion that this is the future of taxation in Pakistan, to get these three back, because this puts immense pressure on the manufacturing, where we are taxing heavily. The income tax side, as well as the indirect taxation through the GST and other regimes. So that, I think, is clear. Now, who wants to take action on them is entirely dependent on the current policymakers and the future policymakers. On the SOEs also, I think if Pakistan is to move forward, the energy sector reform, which is primarily a reform of what do you want to do with the discos and the generating companies with the government. This year, the estimated loss is 590 billion rupees. That in today's value is nearly $2 billion. The next IMF tranche is only $720 million. So that decision we have to make as a nation. I think we've been not sure. Over the last 30 years, there have been discos on the privatization list. But today we have decided that we want to go with the management contracts, because there are serious issues in terms of the property ownerships, the names. You know how things work. We have still not been able to settle, the properties that we agreed with PTCL when we sold it to Etisalat to transfer them. So there are issues there. So we are now starting to think on those lines. So that I think is
Dr. Saab, I'm
um,
so glad that you mentioned discos and their privatization as well. We have one example of Karachi where K Electric has somehow become the damsel in distress. It seems that our approach to all these businesses still remains monopolistic, that there is going to be one disco in one area. Is there a possibility of bifurcating them and then make through a healthy competition, privatizing them so that consumer actually gets more options?
So I think what you have said is again something that has been debated on the table to bifurcate the discos into smaller areas, then bifurcate them further into retail business, which probably is like the bill collection, which needs to be privatized much faster than maybe the transmission bit. So you're absolutely right. Again, why have we not been able to push through with them? Most of the people would come to you and say, Pitafi Saab, that this is a result of the lack of political will. With due respect to all those people in Pakistan, and that will be the majority, I don't agree with that fact. Political will may have maybe one of the ingredients in holding us back. It is the technical will to be able to deliver plans where we can show the politicians, the establishment, the people of Pakistan, the real owners, what is it going to be as a framework to make discourse move forward? From privatization to concession agreements to management to breaking these discourse, we are still, thinking about it. Why do we come to this stage? It is because we've never built the Privatization Commission as a highly competent body with corporate finance experts, HR experts, economists, lawyers who can negotiate these deals and come up with plans that are most viable for Pakistan.
Absolutely, sir.
Privatization per se is no
Dr. Saab,
panacea.
Raja Faisal also has a question
Yeah.
he wants to ask.
Dr. Khaqan, I am pretty much sure that you must have been, keenly looking at the current visit which took place during this week. Of course, I'm talking about the interim premier's visit to China, and he has highlighted a lot of things from there. Plus, he has been meeting with many industrialists out there as well. Almost from the every sector. And earlier, of course, you were highlighting about the agriculture sector as well. And we are attracting investments in agriculture sector. Along with that, of course, our own capacity building for Pakistan's export to the world. All of these sectors, they are going to get help from China. Now, looking at the current situation of Pakistan's economy and looking at this visit at this hour, how do you see the situation in coming year or coming few months? Would it affect positively, and in which sectors will be having a very positive effect?
So, Rai Saab, let me put it this way. China holds the key to unlocking many aspects of Pakistan's economy as we move forward. So, what are those aspects? $25 billion of investment over the last many years has gone into building infrastructure in Pakistan, mainly in the power sector, the energy sector, and the highways. It is time that we populate the 9 special economic zones, the special technology zone, and moving of Chinese firms to Pakistan, where they can produce and then ship outside, is something which is CPEC 2, which I think has now not been in the offing for several years. And that is why you're facing two difficulties. One, on the external sector on exports, as you asked very rightly, and two, the capacity payment of 2000 billion rupees that is built into our own system, because we are not using the 41,000 megawatt of nameplate capacity that we've built through CPEC by fast tracking a lot of energy projects. So the future is CPEC 2, where industry moves to Pakistan. where we have the phase where there is more people to people contact, where we use the Gwadar port for export. Um, Pakistan's ML1 has been lingering for a lot many years. Any connectivity framework will be supplemented through having ML1. So that's a project that I look forward to. Pakistan's signing with the PRL, our refinery, of taking our production of petrol from 250,000 metric tons to 1.6 million metric tons. That is very viable because that will mean our dependence on the external imported energy to go down. Similarly, our capacity of 600,000 metric tons of
Right.
diesel would go to about 2 million metric tons. So that's the
Absolutely,
kind
Dr.
of
Saab.
future.
Let me go back to Avas Shah also, who has been waiting for his turn. Avas, since you actually brought up the issue of privatization and you spoke about that being agenda number one on your list, let me ask you, let us circle back to what Dr. Khaqan Najeeb actually said, that our privatization commission never had the kind of teeth or muscles that were needed. What can be done to actually fix that?
I think we need, obviously, we need to strengthen the privatization bodies. We need, in my opinion, I think political will is the number one need. And other than political will, I think the writ is very important. We need a strong decision-making authority, a strong decision-making government with a strong writ. Because you see, for example, in PIA, if they try to take a decision, they have all the unions all unionizing and protesting and things like that. So I think we need a strong government with a strong writ and a strong will and competent authorities and will. So I think these are the ingredients which are needed in order to execute
You gave me an
a
excellent
successful
scenario.
privatization.
You gave me an excellent scenario, and this has happened in the past as well. Whenever there was attempt to privatize PIA or at least try to reform it, there would be protests from the unions. So what do you propose should be done if the government has its governance in order when the writ of state is there? What exactly should be the solution? Because unions are there to stay, and protests can lead to violence as well.
I think this will be a long process which has to be carefully crafted, taking all stakeholders on board. I'm obviously not an expert on the matter, but I think taking all stakeholders on board and trying to find some middle ground would be the way to look forward.
Right. Do you want to address other issues that were mentioned, like expanding the tax base?
No, obviously, I think there is no going forward if we do not expand our tax base. I think the last time I heard that there were only 3 to 4% Pakistanis who were paying direct tax. Obviously, if we need to, we are an economy of 240 to 50 million people. So obviously, if we are to go forward, we need good tax reforms, and we need to tax the sectors which have been going on untaxed for a very long time now. Primarily, obviously, real estate, and as the colleague here mentioned that we're an agriculture-based economy, we don't have an agriculture tax. So I think, again, I mean, as cliche as the term sounds, everything goes back into reform, a reform that is needed in almost every sector, everything.
Right. But regarding privatization, regarding expanding the tax base, particularly real estate sector, everyone actually seems to be agreeing to this should be done. But why do you think it hasn't been done? Is it because of cartelization, some kind of lobbying, some kind of influence over policy-making bodies? What exactly is going on there?
And Farrukh, with your permission, I have a question for Avais as well. Avais,
So you are not going to wait for my permission?
no, I think Avais
Okay,
can actually
go ahead.
address both of the questions.
Okay. No, you said with your permission. So I said, if you have asked, wait for the answer.
Yeah, Avais, of course, you must be, keeping an eye on, improvised sort of sectors when it comes to modern economies. Of course, I'm talking about the IT-related economies, emerging technologies, and AI related economies as well. How do you see Pakistan's progress in that sector, and how do you how do you see that Pakistan has the capacity, but still there are certain things to be done which needs to be done, but still we are not doing it?
Okay, okay, that is noted. To address the first question, I think when it comes to real estate, naturally, I mean, the tossed around phenomena is that obviously, you know, you have all these big property tycoons who are very, very influential, and, you know, they influence the decision-making bodies, and they sort of get away with things. Although that might be true to some extent, but obviously the problem with real estate is that I think real estate and agriculture are, you know, when everything goes wrong, these are the only two main sectors where, you know, the Pakistan's economy really relies on. Agriculture is a very important sector. You know, anybody who has a common man who has any money in his savings, the first thing that he goes and buys a plot. So the problem is, if you tax these in a shock therapy, if you do them instantly, so the problem is the business slows down, the sales and purchase slows down, the market slows down. So when the market slows down, the economy overall slows down. The real estate sector has an impact on economy since it is such a big and such an important sector. So I think while we all agree on, you know, it should be taxed, it is need of the hour, but I think the short term sort of a shock that we have to face once we do that, and the implements that, you know, when the whole market slows down, I think that is what you know, delays.
Is it not an argument that can be made for anything that we actually tax? It can be an argument that can be made for a trading sector as well. I understand agriculture is a very different kind of ball game, but when it comes to real estate, taxing the common man and taxing the big businesses, there is a difference, no?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And see, this is the whole point. I mean, I agree with both of the arguments. One side of the argument is that you have, you know, all these big real estate tycoons who are, you know, too influential over the government's policy making. That is also true to some extent. We have seen what the file culture in real estate has done, and the horrible results that the common man has been facing. So that element is also true. But other than that, obviously, when you talk about the normal real estate, I think the resistance is that once that happens, once they are taxed, the market overall slows down. So that will have an adverse impact that we will have to face if we take that decision. I think the decision makers are trying to delay a little bit on that, and they're still trying to, you know, brainstorm and find the better way out. As far as the second question is concerned about the IT, I think Pakistan has huge potential to deliver results in IT, and obviously the government has also been very supportive. The current Minister for IT, Dr. Umar Saif, he's a very, very competent man. There has been, you know, tax relief when it comes to IT sector as well. Obviously, in a country where more than 70% of the population is based upon youth, so obviously it is very natural for them to adopt to new skills and emerging trends of the IT industry. I think in the coming sectors, when we talk about increasing export, IT should be the #1 priority.
Dr. Khaqan, very important question. I know you have been highlighting since almost 2022, when all of the political, of course, instability was going on. You have always advocated that for good economy, for economic stability, we have to have the political stability in the country. Of course, next year, the early next year, we are, you know, hoping that that would be obviously the election months and election year, we would call it. If it is all going smooth, then that means we are not seeing any political instability in Pakistan. So everything is hunky-dory for Pakistan's economic stability. But do you see any different scenario in case that we might see political instability in Pakistan? And if we do see it, how to focus on our economy and how to keep it going like this, the way we are doing it now?
So let me say this, any political party which is about to take government or a coalition government which will come in next year's elections, whichever way the results come, has to really come extremely prepared. The issues that we've just discussed today, if they were to even solve these issues of privatization, increasing the tax base, uh, these two issues in themselves are so humongous, and we have not been able to solve them. And thirdly, the energy sector. Let's say if these three issues were their key responsibility to do and their key target to solve, these themselves over the last 2 decades have actually worsened and not improved. That's a fact that we all should accept. The fundamental reform in them hasn't happened. So the first answer is that any political party which comes has to come with a set of highly competent people with a high degree of strategic planning, with very clear doables, and then they must communicate these doables to whether they are the labor union, answering Pitafi Saab's question, the narrative setting, how telecom jobs have improved, how jobs in the banking sector have improved after privatization. Just giving you an example. So first, and foremost, they have to convince the electorate that they have a plan. Till now, honestly, my biggest fear is the instability that may come after formation of a government when they look towards the political government for delivery. So that is how this is going to play out.
Right.
On
Dr.
the
Saab?
election cycle, the very quick
Right.
comment,
Yeah.
I think once the date is given, everyone prepares, for them. They have their processions and everything. The pieces will fall in place, and we'd be in a better state of affairs.
Right. Dr. Zap, we can continue to talk about political economy as well, but let us come back to macroeconomic stabilization. And one aspect that is important is circular debt, the way it keeps on increasing. Do you see that in the current scenario, because it seems that it is a systemic problem, is there any kind of way out of this, especially when it comes to vision of various political parties?
So when General Musharraf left government, he left a circular debt of 100 billion in the power sector. When PPP left government, they left a debt of 500 billion. When PMLN left government, 1100 billion. When PTI left, it was I think 2350. And during PDM's time, again around 2500. And we are now seeing a new phenomena that there is another 2900 billion which is built up in the gas sector over the last few years. This was almost zero if you go back 5 years. So we don't have the exact details because even we are finding hard to publish something on it. So 5400 billion rupees of this circular debt, and look at each government that I've taken you through and how it has risen. That is what I say, Pitafi Saab. Anyone thinking to form government with a very light strategic framework is not going to work. People, there will be discomfort in the business sphere because these problems are holding back our economic growth, which is the only recipe of helping people find employment and get out of poverty. Uh, this is, as you've said, this is not an issue of just going and catching people who are, trying to steal electricity or gas. It's a systemic issue. The government's hands are deep into running the energy sector. SUI companies, generation, distribution, wheeling, everything's with the government. Till we get out of doing this work, till we liberalize, privatize these sectors, till we collect, till we correct the tariff anomalies, till we correct the subsidy anomalies, this is not going to happen. And I still don't even see the hard decisions that need to be taken. I still see that raising prices, again, we are hearing of gas price going up. I know if I read the IMF agreement, it's written there. But that is still not a reform. Pricing changes are not a reform, they are a usual occurrence. Reform is when we actually do the things that I've said to you: market creation. We get our regulators to create markets, competition. These are the future words of Pakistan. They are not deregulation, competitive behaviors. And when there is, you asked a very pertinent question: why does the armed forces get into this business of, stopping collusion and hoarding behavior? The job rests with the Competition Commission of Pakistan, with the State Bank of Pakistan managing the exchange companies, the SECP, because we have again not built the competence level of these organizations where they can
Absolutely,
make a
Dr.
big
Saab.
dent.
That
That's
is,
the
that is
future
a
of
good point,
Pakistan.
sir. I'm told that we have actually run out of time for this segment. Awais Saab, if you want to add one liner, please go ahead, do it, and then we have to conclude the segment.
No, I absolutely agree with Mr. Khaqan that we need to move on from these words of reform, 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 and go towards more specifics and the next step, which is the words that he mentioned.
Right. Thank you very much, Awais Shah, for your time, and Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. Always a great pleasure having you in the show. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Now let us first talk about India's culture, India's tolerance, which is at wholesale display during the World Cup that is going on. I don't know whether we have the video with us in which a policeman is asking a spectator not to chant or to, support Pakistani. Right. The video is here. Let us watch the video and then we can. Yes.
भारत माता की जय, बट पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद. Not good.
भारत माता की जिंदाबाद, good. But Pakistan जिंदाबाद, not good.
Why not? सर अहमदाबाद में पाकिस्तान से आए हैं, पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद नहीं बोलेंगे तो क्या बोलेंगे भाई? पाकिस्तान खेल रहा है, मैं पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद नहीं बोलूंगा तो क्या बोलूंगा? I'll make video and you say to me, I can't say Pakistan जिंदाबाद. You say, I can't say Pakistan जिंदाबाद. I can't say Pakistan Zindabad. Say yes or no.
Sir,
I can't say yes or no.
sit.
No, say once again. I can't say Pakistan Zindabad. I'm in Pakistan versus Australia match. I can't say Pakistan Zindabad.
It's good, sir. Please.
This is the stuff of satires where usually dictators actually ban certain words and those words cannot be spoken. And it is the world's largest democracy telling spectators that they cannot even, cheer for their own country. So we are going to talk about that now. And Faisal, we have seen certain very interesting episodes as well during the matches when spectators, Indian spectators, while Pakistan was playing, kept on actually using abusive language against Pakistan, against our religion as well, and also against our sports team.
True. And Farrukh, if we obviously look at the slurs they have been obviously hurling towards the Pakistani players while getting in on the field and coming out of the field, they were quite, I couldn't understand why they're doing it. One of the slurs or one of the slogan they call themselves, but we call it slur just because normally that slogan they use it while they lynch people, and that is Bol Jai Shri Ram. They have been highlighting again and again, and they've been telling the Pakistan's international team, cricket teams, players straight away that you have to say Jai Shri Ram, Bol Jai Shri Ram, Bol Jai Shri Ram. So these are the things which obviously ICC need to look into. These are the things PCB should be highlighting.
Earlier, they even expected Rishi Sunak
Yeah.
when he visited India to actually chant that as well. Do you know this?
I know, and I don't know where things are moving on. And you rightly pointed out that they call themselves the largest democracy of the world. To me, I think they're a mockery to democracy. And whatever they're doing during this World Cup, we did not see anything happening in Hyderabad. Hyderabad's people and Hyderabad's cricketing lovers, they've been there. Even from the Hinduism, from Christians, from Muslims, everyone was there, and they've been obviously so welcoming towards Pakistan's team. As soon as they went to Ahmedabad, a stadium called Modi Stadium, that's where the things started.
You have an issue with that stadium now.
We must have.
I
it's
don't know.
hatred.
Hang on. There's something very interesting at display here. When you talk about this stadium, Narendra Modi Stadium, Narendra Modi is perhaps the first living prime minister after whom a sports complex has been named.
Yeah.
So if that can happen, it only happens in India, then anything can happen, no?
Everything Narendra Modi does has a political aspect to it. He knows cricket is the mightiest game, obviously followed throughout the Indian diaspora, throughout world we're talking about. And he makes the largest stadium of cricket in his hometown to obviously cheer his own constituency and tell everyone that here I am, your prime minister, and doing everything for you, and that is why my name should be out there. But Farrukh, this particular case in which we saw that he was demanding a permission to, of course, cheer his own team.
No,
of course he can't.
He was trying to cheer his
Yeah.
team, and then he was stopped by a policeman.
This shows that it is becoming a law in today's India that, of course, if they are holding an international tournament there, which is of course World Cup, then they would not be allowing certain teams to even cheer their own team. All of the spectators, they are not allowed to do that. And if we talk about another placard which was actually snatched by one of the policemen,
Very quickly,
that placard actually read, I love Rizwan. Rizwan, obviously he is one of the players of Pakistan.
Yeah.
There was this Indian person, he is Indian, he just had I love Rizwan, and policeman came and he said, you can't show this.
Okay, that is so sad that it is laughable. I'm told that we have to actually conclude the program here. Raja Faisal, thank you very much for your precious time. As you have listened to our participants on various issues, economics is very serious an issue, and we have to keep looking at the state of affairs right now. But remember, the matter of price control will not be fixed till the time you have a local government which is elected by the people. When we call for democracy and more democracy in the country, it is the tier that is most important. Then, of course, we have to keep on looking at market fundamentals, and we'll keep you posted about that as well. Regarding India, I think I have already given up on India. I don't know about you. Let us see what happens in coming days. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.